What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk.
Hello, I'm Granger Forson, www.bizsmart-gloucestershire.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. This time on ScaleUp Radio, I speak with Al Tepper, the owner of Tepfu. Tepfu is a marketing strategy and coaching business that is based near Hemel Hempstead. Al started 7 years ago with the intention not to employ staff or have premises, and he's kept to his plan while building a 6-figure turnover business. Al went through an aha moment in his business where he changed selling time for money, which is not scalable, and now he sells value for money and is scaling his business. We cover a lot of marketing ground in this conversation, like a business leader must be a marketing leader for a business to be successful. The key to marketing is mastering the art of conversation, and service is key to growth, and it replaces authenticity. What is so inspiring about this conversation with Al is how he talks about how trends come and go in marketing, but people buy from people, and it still holds true, even with all the technology we have today and that will come in the future. I know you'll get something out of this episode, so let's go over and listen to Al. So hello, Al Tepper, and welcome to ScaleUp Radio Podcast. Please introduce yourself and your business.
Thank you very much, Granger. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Al Tepper. I run Tepfu. We are a marketing strategy and coaching business, and I live just north of London, and I've been in marketing for, I can't quite believe it, nearly 25 years.
Marketing and strategy coaching. So what sort of size are you? What did you decide with your business as you've been growing and developing it?
Size, one single employee, lots of freelancers. I'm allergic to employing people, to be honest, Granger, and perhaps that will come up in the conversation. My father once said to me, 2 things in business: don't have a building and don't employ people, and then you will have no stress. We can discuss that later. So allergic to recruiting, lots of people in the team helping, but I prefer to work with freelancers because they tend to justify themselves every day, whereas employees, in my experience, sadly, I've obviously had the wrong employees over life, didn't justify themselves well enough.
How does that work for you, a single person business, in terms of, and how first of all, how long have you been going?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years.
Okay, so in the last 7 years, you've built, your successful business in terms of where you are. What does it mean to be, a single person business that's successful like yourself?
Well, first of all, I feel like a benevolent dictator is brilliant because I'm the only person in the business, so I can do what I like, which is great. And I'm an undiagnosed ADHD, so being solitary just allows my brain to do its thing. It gives me great flexibility. It means that I don't have to worry about payroll. It means I don't have to worry, about good and bad months apart from me and my suppliers, my army of assistants and freelancers that help. It takes a bit of pressure off. I think the minute you have staff, I think you've got to worry about their mortgage as well as your own. It's very different as a sole member of the team. It actually makes no real difference. The work gets done. People get paid. The only difference is it's just not payrolled. It's allowed me to grow a healthy early six-figure business on my own with very little, no full-time support, and probably if I totaled up all of the support I have, it's probably another full-time employee a month in terms of hours. But the flexibility that going down that freelancer route, the flexibility it affords me is so far outweighs any even remote prospect or thinking about employing people. It'd be really easy to employ people right now, but it would have to be someone pretty special. And also I've seen so many instances of, when someone's employed, they get a salary whether they do a great job that month or not. When you're a freelancer, you are justifying yourself a lot more every day. And I think, therefore, I find that any employee prospectively couldn't possibly match the energy and scope and experience of a freelancer. So for me, so far, it just suits me that way. For other people, it may suit differently. What's coming next is going to be interesting, but I'm sure we'll cover that on this call.
So let's talk about in terms of your business's marketing strategy and coaching. What is that? What do you entail? Where do you focus? Who are your customers? So let's talk about that.
Brilliant question. We turn business leaders into marketing leaders. The reason we do that and the reason we focus on that is because we have seen over my 25 years in business, I have seen an absolute lack of knowledge and understanding about marketing and communications. In general, it all gets consumed under sales. And we live in a world now where people buy from people even more. 25 years into the internet, well, we had the internet in the mid-90s, but let's say 25 years into the internet, I think I would argue people buy more from people today than they did before the internet, because digital means we're more aware of the acute differences between a machine and a person. And AI is blowing that boundary, but we may well talk about that later as well, because AI is not the panacea. There is no panacea, there's no silver bullet. But the reality is business leaders are woefully lacking in an understanding of what basic marketing looks like, how to get it right on the foothills of Mount marketing, never mind getting it complicated, multiple avatars, funnels, automation, all of the other myriad processes, systems, solutions, and architectures that one can bring into play in marketing. Most business owners don't have the foundations for any of that. So what they typically do is they spend a lot more money achieving a lot less result, because they're either going to give it to freelancers that they can't manage because they don't know enough about marketing, or they're going to give it to an agency that will charge a lot more and may or may not get it right because the business owner didn't know enough about marketing to enable the brief to be as strong as possible to the agency. I come at things from the other direction. I'd rather skill up a business owner so they understand their marketing, so that they understand what's going on, so they understand the basics, so that when they run out of time, they can out-task it to a freelancer, or if it's significant and meaty, or if they just wish to and choose to go with an agency, then at least when they're speaking to the agency, they're preparing a full brief. They understand what's going on. They know it's not just a magic pill that the agency can deploy and that results are somehow going to take longer than 24 hours. So it gives the business owner enough of a reality check to also get the best out of their agency, to have the best possible relationship with the agency. So ultimately, what we focus on is strategy and then helping business owners execute their marketing. We don't push buttons for people anymore. We're far too old and expensive to do that sort of thing these days, Granger. But we have an army of more junior people who are perfect to push the buttons whilst we conduct the orchestra above them.
So I guess going back 7 years, you didn't start out with that sort of idea in mind, or did you? What has that evolved over time as you realise? What's the journey that sort of evolved the business model that you go with today?
I think I had the vision, but I don't think I knew how to express the vision, let alone build it. I think I had this grand idea in my head, and actually that vision is starting to it's turning into reality just now. But that vision was always almost inexpressible. And what that meant was I had to build the railroad whilst I was riding it. In real terms, what that means is I had to build my business model whilst I was executing it. Yeah. And what that means is I'm not selling pizzas. It's not really easy and obvious. It's not a transaction, a low risk transaction. Well, it wasn't back then. It was consultancy. I was a marketing director for hire. And the problem with that is it's a discretionary purchase because marketing is still seen as discretionary. People think marketing is a choice. It's not a choice. 100% of the time, I say this to clients and prospects all the time, 100% of the time, we are doing marketing. The question is, whose marketing are we doing? Our own or our competitions? Because if we're not doing our own marketing, we're just making it easier for them to get customers. If we're not adding to the conversation, if we're not sticking our tuppence in, if we're not putting ourselves into the mix, offering the solutions we offer, we're just making it easier for everybody else. So the bottom line is, back then it was very direct and marketing consultancy, time for money. I then broke because time for money breaks after a period of time when you finally realize actually the one thing you can't make more of is time. And yet that's what consultants start off by selling. It's a terrible idea. And I would encourage everyone to get away from it as fast as possible. So going from time for money broke after about 2 years. I then stopped doing my marketing for about 6 months because I was so busy looking after clients. But I only had 4 or 5 clients. They were all big clients and they were people who needed marketing consultancy, interim marketing leadership. And then in 1 month, I lost 3 of my clients. No fault of my own. One ended, one was being taken over, and the other one, we'd done well enough. They hired an internal function, and I was then working to advise that internal function, but it was a much more reduced contract. But I lost 3 in a month. And I remember that sinking feeling of, there goes 70% of my revenue. What am I going to do now? And so that was that moment, that heart attack moment of, right, time for money doesn't work. So we've got to come up with a better solution. And at that point, I then started to transition. I've always been a trainer, a facilitator, a coach. It comes naturally to me. And so I started to realize that actually the high price point of marketing consultancy, most of the time, A, isn't what small businesses need, and B, it's often not what they can afford either. So I started to develop a very gentle, low-entry coaching program. I had a methodology that I developed. I started to flesh that out. And 8 years later, I have a fully fledged Tepfu lazy marketing methodology. And I deploy that. I have a process, a system. I don't need to offer bespoke help anymore and consultancy help anymore because most of my time is taken up with, as opposed to time for money, it's now one-to-many as opposed to one-to-one revenue generation. And in fact, before this call, I was just putting the finishing touches on some very clever automation that will allow me to scale the Lazy Marketing Academy, which is now the latest iteration of our coaching offering, allow me to scale that so that people can sign up for it without even speaking to me. At the moment, it's still quite manual, and I would like someone to be able to see my marketing, sign up for that at 3 a.m. They live in Peru, and the next day, my team will process it and add them to the academy, and away we go. That's the first exciting kind of reality of where we are today compared to where we were. And the other reality is that this is probably the first time I'll be saying this publicly, although I don't know when this is going out, but I'm launching a train the trainer program, and I am going to be licensing the lazy marketing methodology to other marketing agencies, specialist agencies, SEO and content agencies who don't typically offer strategy. They typically refer those people to me, but I'm getting too busy. So I would like to exit strategy and I would like them to know how to do it and they can keep the revenue. And then I have a licensing program and then I'm off to Monaco, basically. That's the theory. That's the theory. We'll see. Ask me in another 8 years how it's gone.
So, who typically today then? Who are your clients that are in the lazy marketing methodology?
They are typically business leaders without marketing leaders in the business. So it's a law firm with 40 staff where one of the senior partners is in charge of marketing because somebody once saw them and they were quite good at drawing 30 years ago. So they were given the marketing brief because that's how it gets done, believe it or not. It's very rudimentary. Nobody wants the marketing brief. And so it tends to be a short straw exercise. Those businesses need me dramatic. I can't stress enough how much they need support, even if it's not me, because they don't even know what they don't even know. They are so far from the marketing reality. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to be costly, but those are the mistakes they can see. The mistakes they can't see are brand damage, long-term customer disconnect, market disconnect, conversation disconnect, messaging confusion. They won't be able to see any of that because they don't even know what that is. Yeah. And so what they need is someone in their ear giving them strategic help to define the plan, create clarity, and then execution support so that everything is consistent and not confusing, because that's what makes great marketing: clarity and consistency.
So how do you get in front of those clients? How do they find you? I must admit, I'm a senior partner lawyer sitting in my firm. I've been given the chance to do marketing. I'm probably swiveling in my chair at the moment, let alone going looking for Al Tepper. How does your marketing work?
My marketing works quite simply, and I'm happy to explain it. I heard a phrase in 1999. Can you believe? A long time ago. There was a fantastic book written back then by three luminaries of the internet, and the book was called The Clue Train Manifesto. And anyone can get the book for free. Go to cluetrain.com, and you can get their book for free. 95 theses about how the internet was going to change business. And the first thesis, Granger, stopped me dead for about 6 months. I read it and I was so blown away. I mean, this was 1999. We've come a long way since then. But back in 1999, I didn't have broadband yet. I mean, just to remind ourselves, I was on a dial-up. I mean, awful, right? Horrible. But that's where we were. So this thesis came along and just stopped me in my tracks for 6 months. And the thesis was 3 words. This was the first thesis in Clue Train, and it was: markets are conversations. Markets are conversations. And boy, did that blow my brains out 24 years ago. Because for the first time, I'd been in marketing. I'd just finished a master's degree. I'd been in marketing for a couple of years. I'd never even heard the word conversation in the context of marketing. It wasn't about conversation back then. Marketing back then was very typical pre-dot-com marketing. It wasn't an awful lot of digital. Most of the marketing was in email marketing was strong. You could have a strong email marketing game, but even that was pretty rudimentary. But most marketing was direct mail, events. There were no webinars. They didn't exist. Most of the stuff we used, they didn't exist. So what I then spent 20 years understanding was the power of conversation. And so my marketing is very organic. If you go look at my website, it's very basic and rudimentary. I don't use it as a lead generation tool currently. I haven't built my business using digital marketing mostly because I'm an old school marketer. And so what I set about doing was defining my proposition and making sure as many prospects knew about me as possible. LinkedIn's obviously a major part of that. I wouldn't be where I am without LinkedIn, that's for sure. But LinkedIn didn't exist until 2006. Luckily, when I launched my business, I had already had a LinkedIn profile for about 11 years. I had a good, solid, I think I was on about 7,000 connections back then. And so I set to work weaponizing word of mouth and being a master of the conversation. So what that meant was, if you were a lawyer, if you were a startup lawyer in a small firm and you were given the marketing brief and you were in charge of it, you would probably look for some content to guide you. You would probably find something from me and you would fall into my funnel. That was how most of my marketing worked. A very prolific content creator, very prolific community member, conversation participant, and I just communicated my way into success. I didn't use pay-per-click. I didn't care about SEO. I didn't care about, I leveraged social, definitely. I leveraged email, definitely, but I didn't leverage email that much. What I did was I set about being awesome at what I do, serving the absolute pants off of people, and being well known for being the nicest guy in marketing who makes marketing really simple and clear. A very safe pair of hands who's going to make it all a lot simpler. And then the pain starts to go away as a result, because when it's simple, what's the old story of how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time, right? You can't become a marketeer overnight. It takes years. And most business owners will never be marketeers, but they might know enough about marketing to make it work. My job is to get them to, they know enough.
So it's brilliant. I mean, that's very, very clear in terms of that, and some really insightful moments in that conversation already. Communicate your way to success. I think, wow, brilliant. Yeah, and be the master of conversation. Yeah, fantastic. So, let's hit the AI question now before we move on to the business question. So, what is your thoughts on AI and the way it's suddenly exploded? Is it going to replace the marketeers in the next 5 years?
No. I mean, I've seen so many trends over the last 25 years. I can't even, it's almost boring to me now. I've seen so many trends come and go. Do we all remember MySpace? Does anybody remember Alta Vista? Does anybody remember, what was the name of that? Periscope before Twitter, which was the first place you could do short video. I've got a folder on my phone of all the social networks I no longer use. And there are, I don't know how many are in there. So the reality is I've seen trends come and go. I've seen trends in marketing come and go. There was a period of time where LinkedIn was the biggest thing in the world. Then Gary Vaynerchuk found it and got everyone else on board. And it's been a kind of slide downwards since then, because the algorithms had to level up its game. So we now live in a world where algorithms have a seat at the table. That's probably the only trend that's stuck. With regard to AI, the jury's out to start with, because it's way too early, number one. I think we're only on the 1 or 2% foothills of what AI is going to be able to do. And I mean, when we look 5 years, 10 years into the future, I don't think it's going to resemble what it is today, number one. But what's interesting to me is how people are using it. The great thing about AI is that all the people who only care about revenue have gone nuts. They have gone nuts trying to create more content and generate more stuff and do more stuff so they can make more money, because all they care about must be the money. Because if they really cared about their customer, why would they create simple content from AI that doesn't have a human voice behind it? Because people are not stupid. I have seen posts in the last couple of weeks that I know are AI generated. I know they're AI generated. And when I've spoken to the person and said, did you use ChatGPT for that, or was it something else? And they've told me, and they said, how did you know? I said, because you can feel it. It's soulless. It doesn't feel like a human being wrote it. And that's because humans and machines are fundamentally different. Humans are hardwired to fail and screw up. Machines are not. So until AI can replicate the error rate, the spelling mistakes, the typos, the accidental use of double words, the accidental misspellings, the accidental, I used a cap letter in the wrong place, or I used a lowercase letter in the wrong place. The point is, people will get clued in. Algorithms will also get clued in. And I have resisted creating lots of content on AI. I could have done it just as easily as anybody else. I could have used AI to create email flows and done everything else like that. But I'm keeping my powder dry, to be honest, Granger, because I'm not convinced yet that it won't all get uncovered. And I don't want to be a brand that is exposed for publishing 98% of content that came from AI. And the reason for that is that if I were a customer of a brand and I thought I'd been communicating with people and it turned out that I'd been duped and actually I was communicating with machines, I wouldn't feel good about that. When that's happened in the past, when I've been talking to someone on chat in a company and then it turns out it's a chatbot, I am not only furious, but I feel devalued. I feel like I need to go and have a shower. I feel like I've been party to some kind of, inhuman exchange. It's awful. And so I don't want any of my clients to ever even remotely possibly stumble into a place where they suddenly realize, oh, it wasn't Al. Oh, we've been just speaking to some machine. Because I think that lowers my value. So I'm just watching. I think it's going to be interesting for content. I don't think it's going to replace marketeers, because I think marketing is a human discipline. So I don't see how a machine can do everything I do, replicate. On the execution level, yeah, I'm sure you can automate anything. But on the strategy level, I don't see that at all. And if that were the case, the ad agencies around the world would be trembling, because they've got a lot more to lose, because they build go-to-market strategies all the time. I don't think that will automate. I'm sure that the execution end will automate. I'm sure that content creation will get easier. I'm sure that creating email flows will get less complex, but then all the email flows will be the same, because they'll all be driven by the same algorithms. So then the value of standing out and doing something different will increase. It's the same old thing in marketing. There's always a new channel, and in 5 days' time, no one will think about it again, and the next new channel or the next new thing will come along. So I'm interested to watch how AI develops. I'm not convinced of where it's going to go yet.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting how it's gone from November, when ChatGPT was launched, to hardly any articles at all. Suddenly in January they started taking off, and now there are articles every day of this has been done and that's been done, this is going forwards, and people have automated these, and so it's definitely accelerating. But maybe it's accelerating because people are using it to generate more chat or AI generated content.
Yeah, it's a positive virtual loop, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, of course it's popular because it's new and everyone's trying it out. Why wouldn't it be popular? I'd be kind of surprised if it wasn't. But the question is, will it stand the test of time? Foursquare used to be really popular. Is anyone still using Foursquare? Google Circles was popular for about 5 minutes. Is anyone still using that? There are hundreds, and this is the point, we forget all too easily about the thousands and thousands of trends and things we were doing that we've forgotten about. We don't even remember anymore. So the thing with marketing is to keep your eye on the game you're in. And I say this to my clients: as soon as AI started to emerge, I said to my academy members, hold your fire, relax, wait, there's no rush. The first person in doesn't necessarily win. The first person in learns the hardest mistakes. So give it some time, let other people work out how to use it, and then we'll just steam in and do what everybody else does in the right way for our own businesses. It's really easy to get distracted though. One of the biggest problems, Granger, with business owners is shiny object syndrome, right? And so ChatGPT is the shiniest thing I've seen for probably 10 years,
But I just want to go back to one of the statements in terms of your business. You talked about business leaders need to become marketing leaders. I understand why, in terms of because I've been given the job of being the marketing leader because I'm I've been put in the hot seat by the owners, etc., in terms of doing that or whatever. But why is it so important? I actually agree with that statement. I just want to say that, but I'm interested in just explore why you say that's so important.
More than important, I think it's essential. I think it's crucial. I think it determines whether a business is going to succeed or fail. And this is why: because no single penny of revenue, not a single cent, arrives at your business without marketing. Now, the type of marketing you do might just be you going networking, talking to people. Well, that's marketing. What it says on the back of your invoice is marketing. Obviously, what it says on your website and your social channels. What about the PS in your email? Well, that's marketing. Whoever answers the phone, well, that's marketing. So the reality is, marketing for me is at the beginning of revenue in a business. You cannot get revenue without marketing. So it follows logically, if you want more revenue, get better at marketing. It's not rocket science. In my mind, you'll get some revenue by being in business through the incidental marketing you do every day. Well, imagine if you took that seriously. I mean, if I could run almost as fast as Usain Bolt without trying, If I could put a bit of effort in and compete with Usain Bolt, it would be worth putting some effort in. And so this is the point. Most businesses we know don't survive the first 5 years. And that's because in the first couple of years, typically what businesses experience is the friends and family impact. You launch a business, your immediate network that you know about, there's going to be enough customers in there to keep you going, ticking over. And then at a certain point, you hit the drop. And the drop is a bit like, in Finding Nemo, when he gets to the edge of the reef and there's this massive cliff drop. And then what happens? There's a cliff drop in marketing. And it happens when you exhaust your first circle, when you exhaust your first level of connections. And then you're like, well, now what? Why is our pipeline drying up? Well, because you've maxed out the people that know you. Marketing is who else needs to know you and how are you going to connect with them? Why are they going to care? And what action should they take? And if you're not doing that stuff, when you exhaust tier 1, you're not going to get to tier 2. That's massively part of the reason why businesses struggle, because they then go into firefighting, sales and revenue mode. Right, there's no time for marketing. We've got to hit the numbers. We've got people to pay. Forget everything. Brand story. It's all rubbish. I need money. I need deals. That's what they say. Come on, let's go. Come on, you guys, sales team. You've got a board there with numbers on it. I don't care about the fluffy stuff. Hit your numbers. And so the business becomes transactional. Now, I don't know about you, but that never made me feel special as a customer. And a classic example, real world example is how many of us buy something from someone and then we don't get a phone call until next year's renewal. It's almost normal, isn't it? Yeah. Right. Whereas what should be happening is I should be having a conversation all year. First of all, because there may be other things I need. Secondly, I may know other people that need you. Thirdly, just out of courtesy, checking in and keeping the relationship human, even if it's on email, even if it's on WhatsApp, even if it's deep faking my voice, it's better than nothing, isn't it? At the end of the day, what I don't want is a relationship where you're only going to speak to me when it's time for a booty call. I'm not interested in those relationships. I'm not looking for those relationships. Anyone that's looking, I'm looking for meaningful relationships with suppliers and clients, and that means being there. And so if you're in fight mode, if your business is under stress and duress and you're only in sales mode, the chance of you surviving 5 years just got even harder, because you might make the money, the revenue might work, but now where's the soul of the business? What's the brand about? What do you guys do? You keep changing every year. You're doing something different every year. I can't get a handle on what you do. So your brand value drops, recommendations and referrals drops, word of mouth drops. And now you're having to fight for every piece of revenue. And then you get transactional about it. So you start spending loads of money on trying to make the marketing work. It's too late. But at that point, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
you just haven't gone off the cliff yet, but you're going off the cliff.
Yeah, I mean, the late Peter Drucker, he always used to say businesses are two things: innovation and marketing. I mean, you need everything else. That's it. If you're not doing those two things, and even the late Steve Jobs, all the senior leadership team, so that's the board members. Every Wednesday afternoon, we sat down and did marketing. They looked at the marketing, the plans, etc. Because every single one of them was all involved in marketing every Wednesday, regardless of everything going on.
Everyone's in marketing, and slightly old. Who's in sales? Well, everyone's in sales. Anyone can pick up the phone to a new customer and make or break a deal. So, yeah, it's really important for me. I think, my mother lost her business because nobody told her about marketing. I remember that very clearly. She just thought she had some divine right to earn money. She opened a shop on a high street. Well, that's irrelevant. No one. If you build it, they don't come. That's the truth. They don't come, and you've got to work really hard to get them to you. For me, I chose the conversation route. So for me, conversation mastery is the core of my marketing. I want to be well known for being, very kind, making marketing very simple and clear. And whether you're a lawyer, whether you own a restaurant, whether you are a business consultant, whatever it is you do, I will help you get back to conversation marketing and take ownership of it.
Brilliant, fantastic conversation so far. Let's go back to your business decision. So 7 years ago, you started the business. Yeah, you've deliberately kept it just yourself, and you outsource your activities that you don't want to do, etc. And you gave some interesting discussions about that, and even some advice from your father in terms of that. But what's worked for you? What worked? What hasn't worked? Give us some examples.
What's worked? Well, what's worked is being true to my values and caring about my clients enough to invest in communicating value to them. Other people call that marketing. I call it communicating value to my audience. At the end of the day, they've got problems to solve. And if I want revenue from them, if I want them to trust me and come on board as a customer, I want to serve them. And what's worked, therefore, is service. And by the way, and I've said this before on other podcasts, and I'll say it here as well, authenticity is dead. Authenticity doesn't exist anymore in business because it's unregulated. Any idiot can say it, and lots of idiots do say they're authentic. I've met some terrific, awful characters over the years who absolutely claim they're the most authentic people on the planet, and they're not. And I remember 3-4 years ago, I heard this from someone that was in an MLM, very non-credible MLM, very non-credible person, was telling me about this guy called Simon Sinek, and how actually this person who was talking to me said to me, "Oh, I'm the most authentic person you'd ever meet." And I realized, Granger, in that moment, that authenticity must be dead if this idiot can say they're authentic, because they and me have got nothing in common. So then I thought, well, if authenticity is dead, we can't talk about being authentic anymore. I mean, I can call Granger authentic, but for Granger to call himself authentic, it doesn't hold any weight. So what comes after authenticity? And the answer is service. Because you can BS being authentic, but you can't BS serving and loving and looking after your marketplace, your clients, your prospects. Nothing substitutes the love they feel when you care for them. Nothing. I lost a client today. I don't have a problem with it. It was somebody who had outgrown me and I'd outgrown them from the academy, so they've moved on. But I'm still friends with them, and they know they can still talk to me and probably get an answer. They won't get the support that they've been used to, but that doesn't matter. They can still throw something at me and say, "Al, am I completely off piste here?" And I'll probably answer. And they'll probably come back into the academy in about 6 months, actually, when they realize that they were better off in it than out of it. But that's life. I'm not there to dictate to people what their journey is. I'm just there to help them on their journey. And I think that's what's worked. I'm sincere about that. I love helping people to my detriment. My accountant would probably tell me to help less people, I'd probably make more money. But I like helping people. I can't help myself. And if I can make money along the way, even better. It doesn't feel like a job. So the most important thing that worked for me is truly serving my market, putting them first, not revenue. What hasn't worked actually is the opposite of that. I remember I tried at one point in my business, I launched a squeeze page with a very low cost tripwire offer, and it was classic sort of our emails, and I mean, it was just classic sort of funnel based stuff, and it totally failed. It totally failed because my audience, I got some feedback, and they were like, "Has someone hacked you? Because this isn't you, and it wasn't me." So what doesn't work, what works is being true to your values and serving your marketplace. And what doesn't work is selling your marketplace down the river so you can get more revenue in a hurry. Because nobody cares about your business. Nobody cares about your journey. They care about the problem they've got to solve. And if you can help them solve that problem, tell them and show them. Don't give them everything. Make sure there's something left back that you can actually make money out of. But rather than just focus on the pressure of revenue, that's what worked and didn't work for me.
Yeah. So it's just you plus you outsource in terms of affiliate people that work with you, etc. In terms of how do you manage your the overwhelm? We all feel it. It's too much to do. Lots of things got. How do you manage overwhelm? What's your tricks?
Well, for the first 5-6 years, I'm not sure I did. So the first way I managed overwhelm was by not managing it and seeing how that went. Well, I've got very little hair left, and what hair is left is white. So that tells you the outcome of that. The struggle is real. Now I have a default diary. I don't work before 9. I don't work after 6 maximum. I don't work in evenings because I love my family and I want to spend time with them. And I'm not growing a business so I can spend less time with my family. I'm growing a business so I can spend more time with my family. Call me crazy, but that seems to be the logical way to do it. And I also don't work weekends. Oh, and I don't work Fridays anymore. So I work 4 days a week and I'm making more money than I've ever made because I'm more focused, I'm more driven. And the great thing, I would advise everybody listening to this, take Fridays and stop working them. I don't care how busy you are. I don't care how busy you think you are. I don't care how big the business is. Take Fridays out of the equation. Give yourself a 3-day weekend. First of all, your mental health will flourish. Your emotional health and spiritual health will flourish. Your family and friends will see more, and you'll just be happier. But here's the great thing. When you take a day out of your diary, you don't actually lose a day out of your diary. What you lose is all that extra time to do all the crap that you were going to do that you didn't need to do. So what happens when you take one day out of your diary is you look at those other 4 days and you think, well, I better not muck around on those days because I've only got 4 of them. So by creating scarcity, you actually increase the efficacy of the time you have. What an amazing discovery that was.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think about going down to 3 days a week because that's what happened when I did 4. Well, but if you think about it logically, if I said to you, and this is a great test for anyone listening to this, if you only had 8 hours a week in your business, what would you spend that 8 hours on? Now look at your diary and look at all the rubbish you put in your diary and that keeps you working till 2 a.m., that stresses you out, that's ruining your life and marriage and relationships. And it's not making you more money, but sometimes there's an addiction to being busy, isn't there? We think if we're busier, somehow I'll make more money. Because in school, we're taught if you show me the working out, you'll get a bonus point. In life, if you show you're working out, you don't get any bonus points. If you work till 2 a.m., and I'm speaking directly to the person because there'll be one person listening or watching to this, well, it's listening, isn't it? There'll be one person this will resonate with. If you're the person that sends emails at 3 a.m. to let everybody know you're working really hard, nobody cares. Stop doing it. Stop working that hard because you're going to break. And what I've just said, take Fridays off. Give yourself less time and be more incisive with your time.
And
that's probably the biggest shift. Yes.
Yeah, I also help businesses think about a concept called lean or 2-second lean. And the concept of lean is effectively reducing the amount of work in progress activity. So therefore you have to then improve the process, because otherwise if you carry on with the current level of overburn, you'll break the process. So it's time to fix the process and be creative fixing it. And that's exactly what you've just described in terms of doing that. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny how we often think that adding more to it will make it simpler. And somehow, that machine that's not running correctly, well, let's add more stuff to it. That'll certainly, it's the crazy, non-intuitive, I don't know where that comes from, but it's a human problem.
Yeah. Brilliant. Right, so one little sort of question, and though there'll probably be a really good long answer on this, Al, because I've been fascinated by your conversation so far. What drives you crazy about your industry? If you had a magic wand to change something, what would it be?
If you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I'd have probably given you a much angrier response. If I'm honest, I don't spend any time thinking about it anymore because it is what it is. It's an unregulated market. There are people in it with 1 year's experience who are great, and there are people in it with 25 years experience in it who are crap. If there's one thing that gets me angry, it's in business owners not doing their diligence before giving away their hard-earned cash, or as Theo Paphitis would say, their children's inheritance. Before you work with someone in any field, check them out. Whether it's an accountant, a business coach, marketing, whatever, because this is your business. And just because you're a grown-up and you've made a big decision and spent some money doesn't mean it's going to work. And if you make a bad decision, it sets your business back by 6 months, a year, 2 years, it's on you. So own it. Own the absolute hell out of it. take the time to do your diligence. Don't feel pressured to say yes to somebody because they said they need a decision today. Don't say yes to somebody because they promised you everything on a phone call but won't put anything in writing. Take references, look at who they are. You know, if you're in marketing, I always joke, my diary is very busy because I'm good at what I do, and I only work 4 days a week effectively, and I don't spend all those time on one-to-one calls. So I have very little time for calls. So when a prospect wants time on the phone with me, which they mostly don't need, they'll often hear me say, look, you know, never work. I've got a solid 2 weeks ahead. We can speak then. Is that okay? And I follow up by saying, and by the way, never work with a marketeer who's immediately available. You know, that's a really simple way of testing it, isn't it? I mean, if a marketer's got an open calendar and they're free for the next 2 weeks, I'm sorry, but I think they need to get their own marketing right, because they shouldn't have that big a gap, should they? So just do some diligence. What makes me angry is when people give their hard-earned cash to people who are obviously going to waste their time and money. It's your money. Take ownership of it and make wise decisions. Support the people that deliver the result, and you'll get a result.
Brilliant. Well, Al, it's been a fantastic conversation from, your decision from your father, which is don't build a business, have got people or premises. We've talked about your business focus in terms of making business leaders being the marketing leaders, and I so agree in terms of that's that understanding. But and helping them understand the basics. They don't have to be the expert; they just have to understand the basics of that. Building on the vision over time and understanding how to take that forwards in terms of doing that. I love your concept with the lazy marketing method to helping them to really do that. And the conversation about, markets are conversations, that power of the conversation, becoming the master of the conversation, and communication is the key to success in all of that. Finding people that if people care about revenue, well, then maybe they're the wrong type of people that to be working with. I thought that was really interesting. And no matter what the trends are that comes along, it's about focusing on that real service that you do, how you deliver that. And I love your statement of, love the feeling that people have from working with you, your clients, giving them that love. I think that's a powerful one. And in previous podcasts, I've talked to other business owners and people that have talked about loving their people, and you're talking about loving clients, and that's fantastic. And being true to yourself, and that's really where that love comes from in terms of doing that. And finishing with your statement to everybody: stop doing those late night emails and try the 4-day week, and make yourself more productive in terms of doing that. So it's been a fantastic conversation, some amazing takeaways in this, but we always finish with a quick fire round, if I may. So if you're ready, if you'd go back to younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
I was given some advice, learn to get out your own way. That was great advice. But the additional thing I would say to myself would be, stand your ego down and own everything, because it's all your fault.
Brilliant. Thank you. Which books do you recommend?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to struggle with this one because there's just too many. Everything by Seth Godin, definitely. Everything by Gary Vaynerchuk. There's a million great books. So it's hard to pick one. Everything by Simon Sinek as well. There's so many great people to listen to. I wouldn't know where to begin. I should probably set up a list. Things I'm reading at the moment to do with marketing: Hyper Focus by Chris Bailey, The Storyteller by Dave Grohl, actually, which is an interesting one and has relevance to marketing, would you believe? And from a pure marketing perspective, the book that's nearest to the top of my list that I've read recently would be, he says, scrolling down Audible, I don't know which one to pick. There's so many. Well, actually, the one I read most recently, I read it again, was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I know it's a good one, old-fashioned one, but it's in my Audible because I've just listened to it again recently. So those three authors, though, Godin, Vaynerchuk, and Sinek, won't steer you too wrong.
Brilliant. Any podcasts you listen to and any you would recommend?
Yes, the one by Neil Patel and his compadre, and it's not in my Audible, and I can't remember it. I think it's called The Marketing Show. I listened to it in the cars, and I can never remember the name of it, but it's the one by Neil Patel. Anything Neil Patel generally says is golden. So look up neilpatel.com. You can't go wrong. He's an SEO genius, but he understands marketing and money, so it's a rare convergence.
Brilliant. On your phone, what apps add the most to your life, make the difference for you?
The ones on my home screen. For joy, BritBox, because I love old British. Like I'm wading through Blackadder again. I'm learning a language at the moment, so Duolingo every day. It's brilliant. I just hit 50 days, a 50-day streak on learning a language, which is really cool. And the other app that probably makes the biggest difference, well, most of it's business management stuff. Probably the app that makes the most difference would have to be WhatsApp, because I'm in it more than any other app. It connects me to people all around the world, personal and business, and I can't quite remember how we did business before WhatsApp. It's astonishing.
Brilliant. Yes, no, I'd agree with that to some degree, but also it can end up chasing your life if you don't manage it properly.
Well, switch of all notifications, by the way.
Yes.
I have no notifications on my phone apart from SMS messages.
So my favourite question, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
There's quite a few people. I'll go with my dad, because that was the first business leader I knew. He had his own business. He was a very fair person and suffered the slings and arrows of business. And I learned a lot about equanimity from him, oddly. He wasn't actually very equanimous. His emotions governed him to some degree too much. But his decision-making, I remember seeing him slow down decisions. And I slow down decisions now. I don't like decisions that are under pressure or rushed, because I'm not a brain surgeon. No one's going to die based on anything I do. So why is there ever a rush? So he taught me to slow things down, to take a breath, to relax and lean into it. If I had to pick a classical leader, it would probably be I'm going to say Theo Paphitis, actually, because he's an amazing businessman. He's done an amazing thing. And he said one of the most profound things in business I've ever heard. It's one of my favorite quotes ever. He said, just because there's a market in the gap, just because there's a gap in the market, doesn't mean there's a market in the gap. Which I think is just gold, because the amount of people I know who think of a business to launch, and it's an absolutely terrifically bad idea. 99% of the business ideas I've ever had were rubbish, and I should never have actioned them. So good advice. Think twice.
Brilliant. And finally, how can people get hold of you?
Well, I'm blessed with a name like Al Tepper. So if you just type Al Tepper into Google, I pretty much own the whole of the first page. And probably the best way to get hold of me is either via the website, which is tepfu.com, or LinkedIn. If you look for me on LinkedIn, I'm very easy to get hold of. You'll also find my WhatsApp number, my phone number, so you can WhatsApp me. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Well, Al Tepper, thank you so much for this conversation today. It has been awesome, and we've learned so much about marketing.
My pleasure. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.